Back in the Stop. No, stop. I've been using this music for a while, and it's good, but it's not my style. Let's try this. That's better. Let's do it again. Back in the 90s, I was not in a TV show, but I was interested in photography. And most of the time it was film photography. That was the only thing. Digital cameras existed, but they were small compacts with not a lot of features. But if you were on the market for a DSLR, well, maybe you looked at this one. It's the 1997 Minolta RD175. 1.75 megapixels digital camera. Let's have a look at this one, shall we? Getting this camera to work was not an easy job. You see, it doesn't even use a normal memory card. It was literally a hard disk, which was not working. Well, not a big deal. I can always get an adapter and use a classical compact flash card in it. Well, partially. You see, the memory card or the hard disk you want to use on this camera has to be formatted inside the camera. But there are no menus on the back. If you want to format the memory card, you have to connect the camera to the computer using an SCSI cable, which I didn't have, and using the software from Minolta. Even though I have a Windows 2000 computer, it was not so easy. And thankfully some people on the internet, they uploaded an image from a working memory card for this camera, and I was able to restore it. It's time to take the first picture. You see, I like to give my cameras some funny nicknames, and this one is no can do, for a few reasons. Spot metering, no can do. Burst mode, no can do. Wide aperture, no can do. Low ISO, no can do. High ISO, no can do. You see, it's a pretty limited camera. First, that's based on a Dynax 500 SI, which was an entry-level film camera, so you won't get all the features you want. And the second part of it is it's limited to the technology at the time. The maximum aperture you can use with this camera is 6.7. Even if you whack in 51.4, it's going to be 6.7 maximum. The 6.7 maximum aperture is not the only problem. You see, the ISO setting on this camera is fixed to a value of 800 ISO. And if you take into consideration the Dynax 500 SI, which this camera is based on, has a top shutter speed of 1/2000, well, means you're going to use some pretty tiny apertures for general pictures like this. And when you realize this camera was sold in 1997 for $15,000, yeah, you heard me right, 15 grand for a camera like this, I kind of feel the pain of someone who bought this brand new. See, it was 1997, and 2 years later, in 1999, Nikon came up with the D1, which was based on a Nikon F5 professional camera and was way more usable than this contraption here. So, if some of you complain that digital cameras are expensive and difficult to use, maybe you should think again. The files this camera provides are raw files, but no modern software is able to read them. So if you want to decode these raw files, because there's no JPEGs or TIFFs, you have to use Minolta's original software. And for your information, the crop factor on this camera is 2. So what about the image quality? Well, if you remember the first iPhones, the iPhone 2G, the iPhone Edge, well, this is something like that. Dynamic range is bad, and the amount of detail is not that high. I definitely understand why in 1997 digital didn't took over. it was not ready yet. This won't prevent me from trying to try some bokeh shots and macro shots. And once again, I don't have a screen to check them out, but I hope they will turn fine. You see, I think I've been a little bit harsh on this camera because I was judging it with 2021 opinions on digital cameras. But you have to keep in mind that in 1997, the sheer fact to get an image immediately on a computer screen without processing the film was somehow revolutionary. And there it is, the Minolta RD175. The white plastic piece on here is for the white balance sensor, because yes, you can select the white balance yourself. It has a white balance selection, PASM, because obviously you can use it in manual mode, although you're going to be limited to 1/2000 maximum shutter speed and half of a second at a lowest shutter speed. Anyways, you have this PC connector for a flash, a studio flash. This camera might be used in a studio setting, but once again, it's maximum of 800 ISO, so you have to be careful not to overexpose your images, especially since there is absolutely no screen or no buttons, no menu commands. It roughly works like a film camera with digital storage. So, what are my final thoughts on the Minolta RD175? I was exporting the photos from the RAW files to JPEGs and TIFF, and let's be honest, it looks like early days phone cameras. It's not very good by today's standards, at least. But in 1997, it was probably groundbreaking to be able to see pictures on a screen without having to process a film or something like that. That's probably the reason I like this camera so much, because in a way it's so bad it's good. It reminds me of a time where digital cameras were not as good as they are today. So that's all I had for you today. As always, thank you for watching and catch you next time.